Hi, I'm Melanie, and this is Unfashioned. It's a podcast about unraveling what no longer fits and re-wearing what was always real. I am an artist and a designer, and for more than 20 years, I've been curating vintage clothing and accessories with my business, Retro Candy Vintage. These pieces of clothing have tons of stories with them, a lot of wear, and a lot of soul. But somewhere along the way, I realized I've been actually doing the same thing with myself. I've been collecting versions of me and then trying them on, outgrowing them, and then finally admitting that maybe they never really fit to begin with. So if you came to this podcast expecting to hear about trends or what's cool on the runway, this definitely isn't the podcast for that. This is about peeling back the layers, sitting in the mess, and daring to become unfashioned. In each episode, we'll take a look at pieces of ourselves that we've outgrown and ones we're finally ready to claim. Today's story is called The Things I Don't Fit Into Anymore. And it's not just about clothes. It's about life and love and body and identity. So settle in and let's unravel together. There's a glittery tuxedo dress that's still hanging in my closet right now. It's one of my favorite dresses and it has a great memory attached to it. I bought it especially for my 30th birthday party. It was completely constructed out of sequins, even the sleeves, and it caught the light and just twinkled. That night, when I was wearing it, I thought I was stepping into this new decade wrapped in power and draped in sparkles. But here's the thing. Do you know that moment when you're like trying something on or trying to squeeze into something that you used to wear with ease? And then, like, technically it still zips, it still fits, but you just can't breathe in it anymore. That's what happened when I tried to put this sparkly tuxedo dress on now. The seams gripped a little too tight. They were just uncomfortable. The sequins scratched against my skin. It felt a little too short for my age. It still fits, but, it just didn't belong to me anymore. It didn't belong to who I am now. And, that's what this story is really about. Not the clothes, but, the parts of life like relationships and jobs and identities that once fit us so well, that once we were so comfortable in, now leave us gasping to breathe. There was a time in my life when I thought, staying meant I was strong. I thought leaving something or letting go of something meant failure. So I stayed. I stayed in a marriage that was already unraveling. I stayed because I didn't want to admit it wasn't working. I stayed because I was embarrassed of what people might think and how it would look and what it would say about me. And it wasn't, actually just my marriage. I stayed in jobs that drained me. I stayed in relationships that shrank me. I stayed in performances that dulled me. But sometimes we wear things because they photograph well, because they keep people from asking questions, because we've invested so much in that role that we can't bear to take off the costume. And for a while, it worked. I look put together, smiling in photos, saying all the right words, holding it all in place like a too tight dress zipped all the way up to the very top. Well, I've learned something since then. What actually looks polished on the outside can be a quiet form of self abandonment on the inside. Discomfort can disguise itself as duty. It can hide behind appearances. investments, and expectations. And if you're not careful, it can convince you to stay zipped into a life that just doesn't fit anymore. This year, I am turning 46, and I finally realized that we should really stop calling midlife that is a crisis. Midlife is not a crisis. I really am starting to look at it like a closet. One day you open those doors and you realize half of what in there isn't even yours. You either inherited it or you were told that it looked good on you. So you wore it to please, you wore it to bend, you wore it to survive. You wore the outfit of the mother, the good girl, the chill wife, the hustler, the boss babe, the helper. But, now underneath it all, your skin itches. You want to feel that air on your body again. You want to stop pretending. That pretending doesn't actually hurt. So you begin slowly unzipping and unraveling each piece of clothing, the tossing, the shedding. You stop asking, does this make me look good? And you start asking yourself, what does this make me feel? And does this really feel like me? Now, here's the stuff I don't usually say out loud. I honestly don't know exactly who I'm becoming, but I know I breathe so much deeper now. I may wear a little less, but I feel so much more. I walk barefoot more often, and I let the air touch me where I used to keep everything buttoned up. I'm softer now. I'm definitely more vulnerable. And I cry louder than I used to, but I also laugh more freely too. And I don't apologize for either. I don't fit into everything anymore. Not the outfits, not the rules, not the versions of myself I once thought were required. I'm learning to make space in my closet and in my life. That, I think, is the real becoming. I'm no longer shrinking myself into something. I'm no longer forcing myself into something, but I am expanding. I am unfolding and I am unraveling, and I'm becoming more myself than I've ever allowed before. And maybe that's the point, not to look like I've got it all put together, not to squeeze into what was never really made for me, but to just finally let myself fit in to me. Let me be honest and open about what I no longer fit into myself. I don't fit into the idea that my being soft makes me weak. I don't fit into a marriage that required me to disappear and shrink and drain all of my energy and give and give and give just to keep it peaceful. I don't fit into the belief that being busy makes me valuable. I don't fit into the performance of always being fine. And I don't fit into the role of a woman who never asks for help. I don't fit into a closet full of just in case clothing. I don't fit into being scared of being vulnerable. And I don't fit into the story that said I had to earn rest, joy, and love. These are just some of the things I'm done trying to zip myself into. Some sound small, but they weren't at the time. Some sound unimportant, but not to me. They were heavy and they were stitched into me. And now it's your turn. What are the things you no longer fit into? Not physically, but like emotionally and spiritually or mentally. What rules itch against your skin? And what expectations pinch you at your waist? What life have you been zipping yourself into even though you can't breathe inside it? Let's take a deep breath and really think about it. Whose approval have you been dressing for? Whose story have you been tailoring your life to match? And what would it feel like to finally unzip and let it all fall to the floor? If you can, maybe write them down, say them out loud, or whisper them to yourself, because naming them is the first step in shedding them. I'm Melanie, and you've been listening to Unfashioned. If this episode made you think about the things you no longer fit into, if it stirred something in you, share it with a friend who might need the same permission to let go. Because sometimes we need someone else's voice to remind us that we don't have to keep carrying what hurts. And join me for our next story entitled Closet Cleanout. But until then, remember to toss what binds and wear what breathes.